Years ago, many years ago, in fact, 1972, I was sitting at my desk at about 4:30 in the morning at the headquarters of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Pacific Fleet, arranging the information that had come in over the last 24 hours into a logical order so that we could prepare a briefing for the Admiral and his staff, which would take place later that morning. Among the papers I found on my desk was a document entitled Operation Majority, and it was not the entire paperwork involving this operation, but was merely a synopsis of the operation and projects contained under it. One of these projects was called Project Red Light. The purpose, according to this document, was to back-engineer captured extraterrestrial technology for adaptation into the United States space program. Now, I have since come to believe that the extraterrestrial portion of all of this is nonsense, but that the technology is real. I believe that many of us were shown these documents over the years so that later we would talk about it. I mean, how can you keep the existence of extraterrestrials, if they were real, a secret? And how could anyone keep quiet knowing that they had seen documentation, official government documents labeled top secret, that expressed that these extraterrestrials were real and had visited this earth? I wanted to know just how true all of this was, and I began a program of research to find out if extraterrestrials were real. The first thing I did was collect every bit of documentation that I could find, both from the Freedom of Information Act, from the research of others, from books that had been printed on the subject of UFOs, and of course through my network of friends in the intelligence community. What I discovered was amazing. What I discovered, ladies and gentlemen, is that there has been a plan in existence since about 1917, and probably before that, to create an artificial extraterrestrial threat to this earth in order to create a one-world totalitarian socialist government. One of the first documents that I found in my search was this one, the Imperial Japanese Mission 1917, a record of the reception throughout the United States of the special mission headed by Viscount Ishii. And when the Imperial Japanese Mission was in New York City, they had a dinner, and some pretty famous people spoke at this dinner. One of them was John Dewey. John Dewey is the father of our failing, disastrous public education system. Here's what he said. Listen very carefully. John Dewey, professor of philosophy in Columbia University, who was the next speaker, was listened to with great intentness. He said, quote, "Someone remarked that the best way to unite all the nations on this globe would be an attack from some other planet. In the face of such an alien enemy, people would respond with a sense of their unity of interest and purpose." Unquote. Now, bear in mind, folks, that's 1917. One of the next documents that I found, and I found quite a few, but one that's pretty important, is called a Report from Iron Mountain, the probability and desirability of permanent peace. Now, I encourage you to find this book, wherever you can find it. I don't know where you can get it, but find it. Page 66. Credibility, in fact, lies at the heart of the problem of developing a political substitute for war. This is where the space race proposals, in many ways so well suited as economic substitutes for war, fall short. The most ambitious and unrealistic space project cannot of itself generate a believable external menace. It has been hotly argued that such a menace would offer the last best hope of peace, etc., by uniting mankind against the danger of destruction by creatures from other planets or from outer space. Experiments have been proposed to test the credibility of an out-of-our-world invasion threat. And it continues on another page. Nevertheless, an effective political substitute for war would require alternate enemies, some of which might seem equally far-fetched in the context of the current war system. It may be, for instance, that gross pollution of the environment can eventually replace the possibility of mass destruction by nuclear weapons as the principal substitute for war. Are you beginning to get the message, folks? Poisoning of the air and of the principal sources of food and water supply is already well advanced, and at first glance would seem promising in this respect. It constitutes a threat that can be dealt with only through social organization and political power. But from present indications, it will be a generation to a generation and a half before environmental pollution, however severe, will be sufficiently menacing on a global scale to offer a possible basis for a solution. However unlikely some of the possible alternate enemies we have mentioned may seem, we must emphasize that one must be found of credible quality and magnitude if a transition to peace is ever to come about without social disintegration. It is more probable, in our judgment, that such a threat will have to be invented rather than developed from unknown conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, they have created so many alternate enemies in order to bring about their one-world totalitarian socialist state that we don't know which enemy to believe is real or is false, or whether to just toss them all out on their ears. And I think that that is probably going to be the best solution. Disarmament is no accident. All of these bills in Congress to take away our weapons is no accident. The intentional environmental pollution of our lakes, rivers, streams, oceans, forests, everything is no accident, as you just heard. These things were planned many, many years ago. All the bombardment of the public with movies about flying saucers in the 50s, right after the United Nations Treaty was signed and the UN Participation Act was pushed through Congress, and all of the incidents since that have convinced the majority of the American people that flying saucers are real and extraterrestrials exist, and that flying saucers are from an extraterrestrial origin. This is being promulgated in many ways, by television commercials, in the movies, in the newspapers, by creating incidents either real or imagined. I believe, because of my research, and because of the extensive documentation that I've found and that is in my book, that this whole scenario has been created to give us an artificial alien threat from outer space. During the Reagan administration, he made 6 speeches, specifically talked about a threat from outer space by some other species from some other planet. 6, ladies and gentlemen. Why would the president repeat the same thing 6 times, tagged on to the ends of speeches by him? The speechwriters did not put that in the speech. Ronald Reagan added it himself.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This was a powerful suggestion to implant into the minds of the people of the world that there really is a threat from some other species, from some other planet to this earth. Now, you people out there have been ignoring the UFO phenomenon for too long. It has all the earmarks of the most successful, most sophisticated mind control operation in the history of the world, and you are ignoring it. What better way to implement a plan to bring about a one-world government than to create the possibility in the minds of the people of the world that we are being threatened from some other species, from some other planet, and do it in a way that if anybody questions it or challenged it or wants to talk about it publicly, that they are ridiculed.
And the ultimate goal is to make the earth look very small, to present the people of the world with an external threat to this earth, a superior race from some other planet, vastly superior to us in intellect, philosophy, and technology, in order to cause the dissolution of nation-states, the dissolution of all existing religions, and the formation of the world totalitarian socialist government.
Look at the Council on Foreign Relations. Many members, In fact, the majority never serve on the executive committees. They never go through any initiation of any kind. They are, in fact, the power base and are used to gain a consensus of opinion. The majority are not really members, but are made to feel as if they are. In reality, they are being used and are unwilling or unable to understand. They may have been or may be members of the Christian or Jewish religion, but that is only to further their own ends. They are and always have been Luciferian and internationalists. They give allegiance to no particular nation, although they have used, on occasion, nationalism to further their causes. Their only concern is to gain greater economic and political power. The ultimate objective of the leaders of both groups is identical. They are determined to win for themselves undisputed control of the wealth, natural resources, and manpower of the entire planet. They intend to turn the world into their conception of a Luciferian totalitarian socialist state. In the process, they will eliminate all Christians, Jews, and atheists. You have just learned one, but only one, of the great mystery.
Well, happening today, weather permitting, of course, the Air Force is scheduled to launch its secret X-37B space plane from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Now, the X-37B will launch atop an Atlas V rocket. That rocket will send the winged craft into low Earth orbit, where it will operate on a top secret mission for the U.S. military. The Air Force has two spacecrafts of this type. They're an unmanned, reusable space shuttle that's smaller than NASA's manned space shuttle. This X-37B is the one that first launched in 2010 and orbited for 224 days. A second X-37B returned to Earth in June after spending 15 months in orbit. Well, the official countdown begins this morning, leading up to liftoff, which is scheduled for 1:03 p.m. Like I said, so hopefully the weather will permit.
A massive ball of fire and smoke tearing across a mid-morning sky. This was the sight seen by many in Chelyabinsk as they made their way to work and took their children to school. There was no warning of the meteorite, which sent burning fragments raining down from the sky and briefly turned the day into night. Using their mobile phones, people filmed the trail of smoke left in its wake. And then a sonic boom which set off car alarms and smashed windows in apartments, factories and schools. 250 people are injured according to the Ministry of Internal Affairs. 3 are in a critical condition. Most of the windows in this factory exploded, and as children were starting their lessons at this school, some were hit by flying fragments of glass. The vast Chelyabinsk region of Russia lies some 1,500 kilometers east of Moscow. Most of the country's major nuclear facilities are housed here, and it's where the first Soviet plutonium bomb was developed. Many residents initially thought this was a military attack from the sky. Authorities are reassuring the population of 3.5 million that no nuclear facilities were affected, though the meteorite fragments have caused damage in 6 cities in this Ural region.
The CIA contacts Cardinal Spellman in New York to take part in their psychological war against Arbenz. The Cardinal uses his authority to enlist the full cooperation of the head of the Guatemalan Church, Archbishop Arellano.
Cardinal Spellman convinced his counterpart in Guatemala to issue a pastoral letter several months before the coup, in which the Cardinal basically spelled out his message to the flock that they should rise up against the communists in Guatemala and overthrow them. And then the CIA took that pastoral letter and airlifted it around Guatemala.
We had gotten the okay from Cardinal Spellman to go ahead with this. And I wouldn't presume to trace the lines of authority within the Catholic Church, how they get their information, but they do. And we've always said, you know, in an admiring way, that the Jesuits form the greatest intelligence service in the world, always have. The Jesuits formed the greatest intelligence service in the world, always have. The Jesuits formed the greatest intelligence service in the world.
Ad conditionem certam perveni, viris meas, in gravescente etate, non iam aptas esset monus Petrinum eque administrandum.
After having repeatedly examined my conscience before God, I have come to the certainty that my strengths, due to an advanced age, are no longer suited to an adequate exercise of the Petrine ministry. I am well aware that this ministry, due to its essential spiritual nature, must be carried out not only with words and deeds, but no less with prayer and suffering. However, in today's world, subject to so many rapid changes and shaken by questions of deep relevance for the life of faith, in order to govern the bark of St. Peter and proclaim the gospel, both strength of mind and body are necessary. Strength which in the last few months has deteriorated in me to the extent that I have had to recognize my incapacity to adequately fulfill the ministry entrusted to me. For this reason, and well aware of the seriousness of this act, with full freedom I declare that I renounce the ministry of Bishop of Rome, successor of St. Peter, entrusted to me by the cardinals on the 19th of April 2005, in such a way that as from the 28th of February 2013 at 8 p.m, the See of Rome, the See of St. Peter, will be vacant, and a conclave to elect the new Supreme Pontiff will have to be convoked by those whose competence it is.
Look for Cardinal Angelo Scola to come out on that balcony.
Father, the smoke is white, and it appears we have a new pope as the crowds go wild in St. Peter's Square in celebration. It is rather unambiguously white. One hesitates to say because you don't want to get ahead of yourself, but you can see the square. The folks in the square feel the same as we do, that is white smoke coming out of the chimney in Vatican City. And your opinion is what on that, sir? The new pope, we believe at this moment, is changing into his papal white cassock. And one by one, we believe the cardinals right now would be approaching him to swear their obedience.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum. Habemus papam. Eminentissimum, reverentissimum, and most reverend George Marius, Cardinal of the Holy Roman Church, Bergoglio, who takes for himself the name of Francis.
What's up, guys? We got a new Pope in the office, a new Jesuit Pope from Argentina. But after looking further into this, what's interesting is his bloodline is from Italy. So his bloodline goes back to Italy, and if you want to know what's in Italy, then you got Rome. So his bloodline goes all the way back to Italy, but this right here is what really got me. The name he took on, Saint Francis. If you look at Saint Francis and you want to know where it came from, it's Saint Francis of Assisi. Italian San Francisco Assisi, whatever, baptized, renamed Francesco. His original name, Francesco di Pietro, Peter. Francesco Peter Bernardo, whatever. So here you have it. You have Peter the Roman. You have Peter the Roman right here. How ironic. He takes on Francesco de Pietro. Pedro the Romanos.
don't think it would be an earthquake, but what could it be? It's just really odd.
Just after 3 o'clock Tuesday afternoon, residents in Atlantic, Cape May, and Cumberland counties say they felt multiple earthquake-like tremors that rattled their homes and offices.
There was a rattling of my windows and felt the house shake just a little bit. It was unusual.
So it has to be something really big to be witnessed in such a widespread area of South Jersey.
The reports vary from region to region. Atlantic County emergency management officials confirmed with the U.S. Geological Survey that it was not an earthquake. The next thought was that it may have been caused by military training or maybe an aircraft flying by. Both the 177th Fighter Wing in Egg Harbor Township and Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst confirmed that none of their aircrafts were in the air at that time. Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst is still working to confirm whether or not any ground training was happening at the time, although it is unlikely that that would cause such a widespread shake.
I really don't think it's a sonic boom because, you know, as I said, I've experienced them before, and this is nothing like that.
That was real unusual. I almost wondered if I was dreaming on that one. That was unusual.
After initial reports of the shakes came in, we put the word out on Facebook to see who else felt it.
I'm so honored to be here as you prepare to celebrate the 65th anniversary of a free and independent state of Israel. Yet I know that in stepping foot on this land, I walk with you on the historic homeland of the Jewish people. More than 3,000 years ago, the Jewish people lived here, tended the land here, prayed to God here. And after centuries of exile and persecution, unparalleled in the history of man, the founding of the Jewish state of Israel was a rebirth, a redemption, unlike any in history. Today, the sons of Abraham and the daughters of Sarah are fulfilling the dream of the ages, to be masters of their own fate in their own sovereign state. And just as we have for these past 65 years, the United States is proud to stand with you as your strongest ally and your greatest friend. As I begin my second term as president, Israel is the first stop on my first foreign trip. This is no accident. Across this region, the winds of change bring both promise and peril. So I see this visit as an opportunity to reaffirm the unbreakable bond between our nations, to restate America's unwavering commitment to Israel's security, and to speak directly to the people of Israel and to your neighbors. I want to begin right now by answering a question that is sometimes asked about our relationship. Why? Why does the United States stand so strongly, so firmly with the state of Israel? And the answer is simple. We stand together because we share a common story. Patriots determined to be a free people in our land. Pioneers who forged a nation. Heroes who sacrificed to preserve our freedom. And immigrants from every corner of the world who renew constantly our diverse societies. We stand together because we are democracies. For as noisy and messy as it may be, we know that democracy is the greatest form of government ever devised by man. We stand together because it makes us more prosperous. Our trade and investment create jobs for both our peoples. Our partnerships in science, in medicine, and health bring us closer to new cures, harness new energy, and have helped transform us into high-tech hubs of our global economy. We stand together because we share a commitment to helping our fellow human beings around the world. When the earth shakes and the floods come, our doctors and rescuers reach out to help. When people are suffering, from Africa to Asia, we partner to fight disease and overcome hunger. And we stand together because peace must come to the Holy Land.
This was an important day for President Obama in the Middle East. After visiting both Israel and the West Bank, he met with King Abdullah of Jordan. a country facing some very turbulent times of its own post-Arab Spring, but there may be no stronger Arab ally to the U.S. and Israel than Jordan. Our chief White House correspondent, Chuck Todd, traveling with the president and has our report.
Jordan's welcome for the president featured camels and bagpipes. At King Abdullah's palace, a greeting by Jordan's future leader, the young crown prince, a freshman at Georgetown. Topping the king's agenda, the war next door in Syria. Refugees flooding across the border could soon account for 20% of Jordan's population.
So for the Americans in the audience, that's the equivalent of 30 million refugees crossing into the United States, the possibility of that going up to 60 million by the end of the year.
This morning, the president also paid a visit to the Holocaust Memorial, Yad Vashem, and the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, considered by Christians to be the birthplace of Jesus. Powerful images here in the region that may also resonate with Americans back home.
Well, Twitter came alive with both amusement and disbelief when Satan made his appearance in the History Channel's hit miniseries, The Bible. Many viewers say that the demon bears a striking resemblance to President Obama. We'll let you be the judge for yourself.
Still a very chilly Moscow, but there was all the warmth of a Russian welcome for the new Chinese president and his first lady. President Xi Jinping's choice of first foreign visit is a sign Russia and China are marching to the same tune, an alliance Xi has described as China's most important strategic partnership. This visit is an opportunity for the two leaders to discuss troubling issues like Iran, North Korea and Syria, on which they agree. Putin and Xi also want to build on their strategic partnership, a Sino-Russian counterweight to US financial and military power.
I think that during our meeting today we will exchange views in detail on our cooperation and current international and regional issues that represent our common interests. The two-day programme of my visit is full of content and will help to reach certain results that will benefit our relations and countries.
The two countries may negotiate new arms contracts. China is one of Russia's chief buyers of military hardware.
Russia's economy needs to grow, and that lies eastward in China's economic miracle. President Putin says he wants the Chinese winds to blow in Russia's economic sail.
At the beginning of the 4th century AD, the Roman Empire faced one of the biggest crises in its history. It was now so huge that it had been carved up between 4 emperors, 2 in the west and 2 in the east. Like rats in a sack, they scrabbled for power.
Tomorrow we march on Rome! I am Rome. Constantine is my enemy. Kill him, and we're free.
One man would try to unite the empire.
One empire, one god, one emperor! The world will know the name of Constantine.
Constantine would change the face of the empire and leave the greatest legacy of any of Rome's emperors, a new world religion.
The army of Rome marches in the name of the one true God!